And young adults, even more so than the general population, are more likely than older adults to choose, quote, their own fault over discrimination. I ask you this: can black kids and brown kids be villains in their own story? And we expect them to participate in a social contract. This, again, is the legacy of what Dr. King warned us against nearly 50 years ago about the power of history to create a sense of worthlessness and an anachronistic doctrine of white supremacy. That's what Q discovered in asking black people their relationship to racial inequality, especially our young people. On April 23rd, 2012, President Obama said this: "We must tell our children, but more than that, we must teach them. Because remembrance without resolve is a hollow gesture. Awareness without action changes nothing. In this sense, never again is a challenge to us all to pause and to look within." Another Holocaust Remembrance Day speech. It's not like we don't know the powers. The question is, whose history will we be empowered by? The condemnation of blackness and the challenge of the racial criminalization of black people couldn't be better shown in this contemporary moment but through the commissioner of NYPD's police department, Braden. I open with this 2.5-minute clip to make a key point about the way that social science is a form of statistical racism that justifies discrimination in our contemporary moments. And that this form of communicating inferiority, of pathology, of people who are undeserving of the full fruits of freedom, has a particular history that emerges in precisely the moment that Reconstruction is ending, segregation is beginning, and John Daniels is declaring that racism is dead in America. Stop and frisk over the past 8 years here is documented in this slide. Produced 4.5 million stops, 88% of them resulting in no further action. Summons are tickets, and arrest doesn't mean guilty. So at best, we're talking about a very small population of people who were subject to any form of criminal prosecution beyond simple stopping. But the stopping has to place us in a context that moves us from slavery to apartheid, that moves us from the questioning, do you belong? Can you prove that you should be here? And so let's listen to the commissioner on a recent press interview after a recent federal judge ruled portions of stop and frisk illegal. She has now been taken off the case. The case has been rolled back to the appellate court. The future of this trial, of this case, is uncertain. But here is Ray Kelly defending what you see in front of you.
Further law enforcement action, and then look at who is getting targeted: 52% black, 31% Hispanic, 10% white. I first want to focus on that 88% number of people not doing anything wrong. Does that not say to you as the commissioner of the police, we're doing too much of this?
No, it doesn't mean that people are not doing anything wrong. If you look at the statute, it says reasonable suspicion that individuals may be about to commit or committing or have committed a crime. One of the classic examples that we use is somebody going down the street trying door handing, or a group of young men that a bodega owner fears going to strong arm rob them when they leave their store. So there's a preventive aspect to this. People say innocent. That's not the appropriate word. What we use here is the standard of reasonable suspicion. If you have probable cause, then you have enough to affect an arrest or issue a summons. This, by the way, is the standard law enforcement practice throughout America. It's certainly not to take a look at racial profiling in terms that happen, you should first look at the universe of people who are identified by the victims of crime. The perpetrators identified by the victims of violent crime. What does that universe look like? And in New York, that universe certainly comports to the racial makeup of the people who are being stopped.
Well, so let me just answer what you're saying. Basically, there are more African Americans and Hispanics who are committing crimes in New York City. Therefore, it justifies a higher percentage of those being stopped on the suspicion that they might do something wrong. They might commit a criminal act. Because the judge says that's faulty reasoning. She's saying you can't take an innocent population and say that that's the same as a criminal population.
Well, obviously, we don't agree with the judge, and that's why they did an appeal that it should go forward here.
We all agree. So black, male, urban, presumptively guilty. How did it come to pass that a man with the last name Kelly, representing a tradition of Irish Americanness, whose own community is subject to xenophobic nativist attacks and the presumption of being less than their Anglo counterparts, could come to represent a systematic policy that says, because there are real black criminals, all black people are suspicious. That is effectively the argument. Last I checked, almost all of the most destructive crime in this nation in terms of the slow catastrophe of economic destitution comes from white men on Wall Street. But the real lesson here is the Rand Corporation. That's the real lesson, and that's the part of the history we haven't paid as much attention to, because the seductiveness of our way of organizing life around what statistics tell us, this way of quantifying people's humanity and using regression as a predictive way of saying we control for all of the many factors in society, and we surmise that in the interest of public safety, in the interest of anti-terrorism, it is in our best collective interest that we profile these communities. Again, this is a choice we make. This is political work we do. There are alternatives, and I'm not going to fully develop all of this, but I want to invite you to read Condemnation, to see those alternatives, because the simple fact of even the possibility that, in the case of Rudolph Giuliani, who very much takes credit for the kind of broken window